Hello, and welcome to Chinese Folktales. This is Beibei. For Chinese people born in the 80s and probably the 90s too, we grew up watching some of the same TV series. It's almost impossible for someone in my generation to not have watched The Journey to the West and The Dream of the Red Chamber, both of which came out in the 1980s. At certain hours during the days of the summer vacation, all the kids would be sitting in front of the TV, watching the same episodes of The Journey to the West, summer after summer, for over 10 years. Besides these two, another TV series that came out in the early 90s also made a big splash. That was The Legend of the White Snake Fairy. For a period of time, when I was in junior high, you would hear the songs from this TV series drifting out of every neighbor's window at exactly the same time at night. It was that popular. Of course, these TV series were all based on books and legends that have been around for hundreds of years. The Legend of the White Snake Fairy was one of the four most well-known romance folklores. The others include The Cowherd and the Weaver Fairy, The Butterfly Lovers, Lady Mengjiang Weeping Over the Great Wall. So, the story goes. Once there was a female white snake that spent 1,000 years in the mountains, practicing her supernatural powers. She was a very kind snake and never harmed anybody. Eventually, she became so powerful that she could turn into a person, a beautiful lady, in fact, the White Snake Fairy. Having spent so much time all by herself, the White Snake Fairy envied the lives of humans. They had families, kids, and laughter. Their lives seemed to buzz with excitement, the opposite of what she had lived through in the past 1,000 years. She did have a companion, though, another female green snake. The Green Snake Fairy had also been practicing, but her supernatural powers were a bit weaker, though still strong enough to turn into a human form. One day, they decided that they would turn into beautiful ladies and venture out into the human world. They came down to the beautiful lakeside city of Hangzhou. It was a really good pick. The city was known as Heaven on Earth in China, with hills of tea plantations, mountains with ancient temples, and most of all, the West Lake. On the day that the two snake fairies came down from the mountains, a light drizzle fell on the city of Hangzhou. The West Lake was veiled with a thin mist, more beautiful than ever. The snake fairies were mesmerized by the view and were so excited to start their adventure. But soon, it started raining for real, and the snake fairies did not think of bringing a thing called umbrellas when they came down. Just when they were starting to panic, guess what I'm about to say? That's right. A handsome young man happened to drift by on a small boat. And of course, he had an umbrella, and he offered it to the two beautiful young ladies and left without leaving his name. Imagine the look in the eyes of the White Snake Fairy. First day in the human world, and a kind, handsome young man offered her just the help she needed. This is after being lonely for 1,000 years. Talking about love at first sight. As to the young man, his name was Xu Xian. His family had a pharmacy, and he was a doctor himself. He was very kind, often helped the poor who had no money for either the checkup nor the medicine. Well, basically, He was handsome, and he was kind, and he was a doctor. Yep, pretty perfect. It was a good thing that the borrowed umbrella had to be returned. And then the White Snake Fairy and Xu Xian got to know each other. And sparks of love flew out of their eyes and hearts whenever they were together. There was nothing to stop the two from falling in love and getting married. Well, except that one of them was a snake. But no one had to know that. What also made them a good match was the fact that the Snake Fairy had lived in the mountains for so long, and she knew all the plants that grew in the wild. She was a natural doctor who had rich knowledge of herbal medicine. Added to that was her supernatural powers, which could come in handy when she was trying to cure some obscure illnesses. So the couple ran the pharmacy and clinic, and business just kept growing. What she told everyone was that she was Lady White from a faraway land. The local people grew to love and respect her. Her companion was now called Miss Green, and she served like a personal maid to Lady White. All seemed to go well, but trouble was on the way. The days were getting warmer, and the Dragon Boat Festival was coming. For that festival, leaves of the Chinese mugwort would be hung outside the gate. Sticky rice dumplings would be made, and a special wine had to be made too. And the wine was made with a mineral called realgar. The purpose of the wine was to drive away bugs and snakes. Yeah, bugs and snakes. This was immediate danger for the snake fairies. Every family would be preparing this wine and spraying it everywhere. There was nowhere to hide. The White Snake Fairy was no weak soul, of course. She thought that with 1,000 years of practice, she must be a lot stronger than ordinary snakes. I could take a cup of that wine, she thought, when her husband offered it to her. She didn't want her husband to get suspicious, so she downed one cup. Whatever she had practiced in the mountains did not work for this. Her stomach churned like never before, and she soon collapsed onto the bed. Her husband, Xu Xian, was terrified, but being a doctor himself, hurried out to get some medicine for his wife. The moment he was out of the room, the White Snake Fairy couldn't hold it together for a second longer. She turned into her true form, a huge white snake. So when Xu Xian came back, instead of seeing his wife, what he saw was a huge white snake hissing on the bed. Can you imagine the shock that went through the poor man? The world went dark, and he collapsed too, thinking that his beautiful wife had been swallowed up by the snake. After a long while, when the effect from the wine wore off, the White Snake Fairy turned back to her human form again, only to discover, and here is the Romeo and Juliet moment, that her husband had been scared to death in the literal sense. She was devastated and couldn't stop crying. Miss Green was more rational. She reminded her lady that the Lingzhi mushroom on the Kunlun mountain could bring people back to life. Remember the Lingzhi mushroom and the Kunlun mountain? This stopped the waterworks right away. Lady White Snake used her supernatural powers and obtained the Lingzhi mushroom. Her husband was saved. He came back to life. But the life of a snake-turned-human was not going to be that easy. And here comes a new character in the story. A monk named Fa Hai that lived in the Golden Mountain Temple nearby. He was passionate about catching demons and expelling evil spirits. He saw through Lady Whitesnake and was determined to capture this snake monster, no matter how pretty she looked. But he knew the two snakes had supernatural powers of a great caliber, and he was just a monk. He was clever, though. He knew just the way to trap his prey. He tricked Xu Xian into the temple and locked him up. The two snake fairies followed soon after, begging the monk to release the man. But as I said, the monk Fa Hai was determined to catch the two snakes. So a fight started between the monk and the two ladies. Normally, it probably wouldn't be trouble at all for Lady Whitesnake to defeat the monk. But she happened to be pregnant at the time and was ready to deliver. So this was not a good time for Lady Whitesnake, and she was losing the fight. Then she mustered all her strength and brought the waves from the river to the temple. Monk Fa Hai had a few tricks up his own sleeves too. He took off his Buddha's gown and turned it into a dam, blocking the water. The water kept rising, and the dam kept getting higher too. This was not going well. Lady Whitesnake was normally a very kind person, but she lost it when she was all caught up in the fight, and forgot that a whole city of people lived not far from the temple. When the Golden Mountain was flooded, a lot of innocent lives were lost too. As a punishment, Lady Whitesnake was locked up under the Leifeng Tower near the West Lake. This happened after she had delivered her son. Over a decade later, their son had grown into a young man and took the first place in the Imperial Civil Service exam. It wasn't until then that her son was able to rescue his mother from under the tower, and the family was finally united. So this was the legend of the White Snake, which first appeared during the Ming Dynasty and got more and more interesting over the years. Despite the fact that the Chinese culture doesn't really adore snakes, but people have always liked Lady Whitesnake. She's quite beautiful in the TV series, and interestingly, in the version that I grew up watching, Xu Xian, her husband, was played by another female actress, in male costume, of course. Lady Whitesnake was saved by her son. And in our next story, a young man split apart a mountain to save his mother. I will share the details in our next episode, so hope to see you then, and bye for now. This is a China Plus podcast. Special thanks go out to Sanlian Zhongdu for their help in creating the content for this show. If you like the podcast, please give us a rating and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen. If you've got any questions or feedback, please feel free to contact us via email at podcast@cri.com.cn or find us on Twitter, China Plus Pods.